Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Traders MindChat show. We've got a very important topic to talk about today, and it's a question that I've seen a lot of people struggling with lately, especially when we have NVIDIA pushing to all-time highs, reversing off those highs yesterday, starting to rebound today, then it's starting to sell off again. Big question that a lot of people are asking themselves isn't that maybe part of it's about NVIDIA, but a bigger part of it is about who should we listen to? With so much information coming at us from all directions, social media, friends, news, analysts, coaches, it could be overwhelming to know who to trust. But I think the real question isn't just who to listen to, but why we're listening to them in the first place. So I ask you this, the why factor. Why are you listening to the people that you listen to? Think about it. If you're listening to friends for trading, if you're listening to news, analysts, gurus, coaches, mentors, even someone famous that you've read their books and you're following what they're doing, why are you listening to the people that you're listening to? It's worth it to ask yourself the question, but to also write down the answers that come to you. Write those down. In fact, write this down so that way you could go off and write those answers later on. But here's something else. Think about the mental state you're in when you're asking yourselves those questions, because the mental state that you're in might shift the answers a little bit. So let's just say that you're calm, relaxed, it's the weekend, or maybe you had a good day in the market. The market's now closed. Day has been relatively stress-free. Maybe it was a good day at work. You're on your way home and you are reading or you're listening to something from your favorite news source, your favorite coach or trading mentor. How are you absorbing that information? Probably a little bit different than if you are stressed, frazzled, it's a rough day at work. Then all of a sudden you take a look at the market and you start to see some stocks going against you. Then information starts to come your way. How are you taking it then? Are you a little bit different than you were in the calm and relaxed state? Probably, right? That begs another question. Not just who should we listen to, but when should we listen? Because the who should we listen to? So if you're listening to, I wrote a bunch of notes right here, right? So if you're listening to friends, news, analysts, gurus, coaches and mentors, even the random internet troll, the answer to who should you listen to or when you should listen to them, the answer to all those is sometimes. Sometimes, yes, even the internet troll deserves a little bit of love sometimes. But when we start to think about when we should listen and we start to ask ourselves why we should listen, a couple of things come to mind, right? So who do I listen to? Well, here's who I listen to, and if you've been following us recently, this answer will come as no surprise to you. Who do I try to follow and listen to? God, right? God. The reasons why: supreme intelligence. He loves me. He has my best interests in mind and heart. And there's plenty of evidence through scripture, through seeing, through living life and reflecting and seeing how I've been brought through. So, plenty of evidence for why I should listen to God. Now, how often am I listening to God? Well, the goal is always. I often fall short of that, unfortunately, but it's something that I'm working on. But when it comes to listening to some of these other folks, right? So listening to a coach or a mentor, listening to the news, listening to analysts, if we're in a fearful state and we're a little all over the place and we're trying to figure out, well, what should I do with this position here? I'm up big and I don't want to lose. Now there's somebody that just posted on the internet saying that, oh, NVIDIA is going to fall. It's at its top. Somebody else posted that, oh, don't worry about it. This thing is going to be the next big thing for the next several years. So you should be able to sit with it. And you're getting bombarded, well, with these kinds of thoughts and ideas, and you're struggling. Well, what should I do? Well, what kind of a state are you in if you're asking yourself, well, what should I do? You're in a fearful state. If you're in a fearful state, then what are you putting above you? Well, you're putting certain senses of fear, right? You're in that instance, you are controlled by fear. This is where at least a part of my spiritual journey has led me to, because if I'm all of a sudden, if I'm afraid of, well, what am I going to do? Then I'm off plan, right? Because every single trade that we take, we should be taking with some sort of a plan in mind. The way that I lay out my trades, I know exactly where I'm going to enter, where I'm going to cut my loss short, and how I'm going to take profits on the way up. Now, I don't know exactly when I'm going to sell on the way up. Some of it is rules based, where I'm looking for a particular danger signals. Like yesterday with NVIDIA, I ended up selling that one because it had 8 danger signals at the end of the day. So did I know that I was going to sell NVIDIA yesterday? No. But when I did, I had my plan Y and it was following that plan. Anyhow, because I had that plan in place, I'm able to follow that plan. So if in the moment, if I'm second guessing that plan and everything that led up to that plan, it's really taking everything that's been given to me already and tossing it out the window, putting fear in its place, and then searching for something else to give me comfort. Oh, like, kind of think about it. It's almost like, well, when I've been reading the Bible lately and listening to uh, the version of it on Ascension, or on the Halo app. It's really fantastic. If you're interested in the Bible, the Halo is a fantastic app. Anyhow, um, so I'm listening to it, and the story of Exodus comes out, and how at the time Moses is leading the people through the desert, and at first they're happy, but then after so many years of being out in the desert, they're starting to waver and question, like, well, when are we going to get to where we're going? When are we going to get to the promised land? Things actually weren't so bad back there when we were slaves. At least we were being fed and the food was halfway decent. What's getting over them? Fear, right? Their minds shifted from uh, the plan to worrying and doubting. Same thing happens with us in trading sometimes, right? Or it can, if we're not conscious of it. We're in a trade, right? Like, let's say that. Let me share my screen. Okay, share screen. Might look a little funky because I didn't move the screen over, but let's say that you're looking at NVIDIA, right? And NVIDIA has had this big run, was up about 50%. I sold the last bit yesterday at about 40 something percent. Move this up a smidge to where it was actually sold 42%. And so you're looking at it over here and you're like, oh man, well, what should I do? Well, the answer to what you should do is always follow your plan. Now, let's say you're doubting your plan. You shouldn't doubt your plan. Your plan is what got you to where you are. For better or worse, your plan is what got you to where you are. So you should follow your plan. Now, one of the things that I talk about in my own book, the Trading Mind Wheel, is about post analysis. So it talks about planning, but it also talks about reviewing the results of your plans. So that way you could go back and see, okay, well, this part of the plan worked, this part of the plan didn't work, this part of the plan was great, this one got me in a heap of trouble. Great. So now what do I need to do to fix those plans? Right? Because if we keep on running the same plans over and over again, we should expect the same kind of results. So if we want better results, then we need to start to tweak things. And so that's what the Trading Mind Wheel book helps you figure out. Well, which levers do I need to tweak? That's part of the post analysis chapter. So depending upon the mental state that you're in, if you're in that fearful state and you're running over and trying to find, well, what did Mike say about NVIDIA? Maybe I should do that. Or what did Oliver Kell or Mark Minervini or whoever say about said stock or crypto or ETF or Forex pair or whatever it is that you happen to trade? What do they say about it? And you're in this worried state and you're just trying to latch on to something, then that's going against your plan. Well, hopefully, if you do have a plan. Let me know what questions you guys have so far. I think that when it comes to who to listen to, it's not that we should ignore outside influence. It's not that we should ignore the internet or friends or analysts or gurus or coaches or any of that stuff. All that stuff can be good. It's really more about taking a look in the mirror and seeing, well, what kind of mindset are you looking at? Well, are you looking at the information that's coming to you as something that you should latch on to and try to make a hurried decision? Or are you taking it in and maybe some of it you let go, right? Because maybe some of the comments are ridiculous, or maybe some of them are interesting and worth a further look, and you note it down and you consider it a little bit more later on. The answer to who we should listen to is more about sometimes we should listen to gurus and coaches and mentors and analysts and news and friends and all those things. That sometimes there's a time for all of them. The time is when it's serving us well, but it's up to us to know when we're being served well. And part of that is knowing ourselves, and part of that is building routines to put ourselves in a great state, a great mental state. How do we get ourselves into a great mental state? How do we sustain it throughout the entire day? A lot of people talk about morning routines. I have a morning routine. You Google morning routines. You'll find loads and loads of them. I'm happy to go into mine if any of you that are here that are watching live want me to. Just type into the chat if you want me to go into that. But it's also important to have routines throughout the day. You might have a morning routine, and morning routine is fine. That helps set us up for the rest of the day, but it's also important to have things to help keep us going throughout the day. So, a big part of what I do throughout the day, in addition to trading and work, right? We're all doing this stuff. For me, work is coaching people. Work is creating content like this, blog posts, all the stuff that you see on social media, newsletters, and what have you. But it's also important to keep my mind right. How do I keep my mind right? Well, it should come as no surprise to you. Prayer is a big one. I pray multiple times a day. I also exercise throughout the day. I want to make sure that I'm getting up, moving around, that I'm not just in the seat all day. That helps break things up. Go make sure that I'm drinking plenty of water, right? And just breaking up the day gives us the time to reset mentally, come back with a little bit more energy. And then when something's happening in the market, not freaked out by it. Part of not being freaked out by something that's happening in the market is having a plan for it and knowing what those plans are. So that also means that whatever your plans are that they're simple enough for you to follow. And they're also simple enough to where you could write them down and quickly review them. Right? If your plans are uh, chapters long, it might be a little bit difficult to figure out what to do, when, and how, and why. I fell into that trap years ago. Uh, at one point, I had about 100 different sell rules or 100 different buy rules and pretty close to 100 different sell rules. And so when I'm in a trade and I'm trying to find out, well, I have a plan. There's all this, right? And imagine a scroll just going down to the back wall over there. That's difficult to follow, and that leads to all kinds of confusion too. So part of my post analysis back then was I need a simpler plan. And I at least would need to learn better, right? Because part of having a simple plan isn't that the plan is necessarily easy. We want the plan to lead us to a certain result. We also need to be able to execute on that plan. So back then, part of what was uh, not working for me was that I was overreaching. That's been a struggle that I've had for many years, and it's something that I still catch myself every so often because as somebody that likes to achieve, right? It always like to push myself, right? If that's you, right? Maybe this resonates a little bit. Constantly wanting to push yourself, push the envelope, trying to do in as much as you possibly can. Sometimes that leads to overextending, and sometimes that overextension leads to confusion, especially in the moment, especially when something as simple as or seemingly simple as clicking buy or sell. What do you do in the moment? You need to have a plan that you can readily execute, enough faith to follow that plan, enough faith in that plan to not start Googling or hopping on the news or going to some external source, whatever it is, even if the external source is good, to say, well, what do I do? You should have those things pre planned. And if part of your plan, right? So write out your plan. If part of the written plan is I check with this person for this decision, then great. Then that's part of your plan. But if you're doing something like that randomly, then that becomes a bit of a problem. So anyhow, we'll open it up for questions. While we are waiting for questions, we do have a newsletter that goes out pretty much every single day. So if you're not already on the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter. It's free. Go to merrillwealth.com/newsletter. It is scrolling right down at the bottom of this. I'll also grab a link and put the link into the chat. And so we've got a bunch of people that are here live with us on X and on YouTube, even over on Twitch. So let me know that you're alive out there. Type something into the chat and get your questions in. We've got a few more minutes if you'd like to hang out for a bit. All right, just see this question coming in. Question about Kava. What are your thoughts on Kava? My backstop was hit and was able to get a 30% gain. Very good. This is from one of our members, Anthony. But would you consider buying back based on today's action? Very interesting question, Anthony. Let's take a look at the chart and see. All right, so here is Kava. And let me turn off the danger signals. The danger signals indicator is free, by the way. You could get that over on TradingView, or just send me a message for the link to that. But Kava looks like it's starting to set up again. And let's draw a little rectangle around this here. So it's starting to set up again. It's consolidating here. I wouldn't count this as a setup. And today, price undercut the 21 very briefly, or bounced from the 21. Price also fell below this low over here. So the question that you're asking, Anthony, is will price follow through on this bounce? Is it worth it to re-enter right here in case if price does rally? It's not the kind of tactic that I would do. Whenever I'm looking to enter a trade or re-enter a trade for that matter, I want it to be an entry that's in my playbook, right? Anthony, you know the playbook. For the sake of everybody else, let me pull up the playbook. So this is my playbook. It has many tabs down here, as you can see. And so I use this as my trading journal. I use it as to keep all my different lists. And I also keep it for my model books. And so what I'll do, what you see here is the different setups that I like to trade. I will define the setup, come up with exactly what I want that setup to have, minimum criteria, things that take it from good to great. And then I'll come up with a variety of different models for that setup. So I will only trade setups that I've researched and studied and have proven to work over time, and how I should manage those trades. I want stocks that will fit what I've got here and give me a higher probability to make money than to lose money. That's the bottom line. So that's true for any trade. So whether I'm in a trade or I'm not in a trade, or I want to get back into a trade, I wanted to have one of those setups that were over on the spreadsheet. Now, this so far is not one of them. So I wouldn't take that. I traded it down here, right? And that gave a nice quick 30% run. But this right here, it's not quite ready for anything that I'm interested in yet. Maybe next week. Maybe it tightens up a little bit more around the 21. Maybe it gets back over to these highs and gives a nice tight entry and it forms a flat base, maybe a VCP, but it's not quite there yet. So that is my thoughts on that one. All right, and so it looks like that is it for the day. Give you guys one more second to get in any final questions while I take this sip of water here. All righty. So it looks like that's it. So we will end it here. I want to say thank you all so much for being with us today. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. If you have any topics that you would like to be discussed here, or if you have somebody that you'd like me to bring onto the show, please send me a message. I'm glad to make this show as best as it possibly can be for you. Till next week, have a great and wonderful weekend. Much love. God bless. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below and become a part of the Mara Wealth community. And make sure that you check out some of the other videos on the channel. They're exactly what you need to see. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them. Leave a comment.